Welcome to the Scary Dark Room. Hey guys, tonight we're diving into something truly disturbing. True stories from people who survived the unimaginable. These aren't the tales you hear around a campfire or read in a horror novel. These are real accounts, stories that should have ended in tragedy, but didn't. And yet, those who lived through them say they sometimes wish they hadn't. Before we get deep into the story, take a moment to like and subscribe to the video. And tell me, where are you watching from and what time is it right now? Because after this, you might not sleep so easily. It was late autumn in northern Montana, the kind of cold that turns your breath into fog and your bones into glass. The first story comes from a woman named Lena. She was driving home from work, a 2-hour trip along a lonely forest highway. Her shift had run late. It was already past midnight, and the sky was black as ink. The snow had started falling an hour earlier, thick, slow flakes that blurred the road. Her radio was broken, her phone had no signal, and the only light came from her headlights, cutting through the mist. That's when she saw him. A man, standing in the middle of the road. She slammed on the brakes, the car sliding sideways on the icy pavement before coming to a stop. Her heart pounded. The man didn't move. He just stood there, head tilted, one arm hanging limp. His clothes were wrong for the weather. No jacket, no gloves, just a white shirt, soaked and dark around the chest. Lena rolled down her window halfway, calling out, asking if he was hurt. But he didn't answer. He only lifted one hand, pointing toward the woods. She said she didn't know why, but something in her, some animal instinct, told her to keep driving. So she backed up, turned the wheel, and went around him. As she passed, her headlights caught his face for the briefest moment. His mouth was open, not like he was yelling, but like he'd been screaming for a long, long time. When she looked in the rearview mirror, he was gone. No footprints in the snow, nothing. A few days later, when the storm cleared, police found a car buried beneath a snowbank not far from that stretch of road. Inside, a man had been frozen solid, seatbelt still on, mouth open wide, just like the one Lena saw that night. The timestamp on his phone showed he'd died 4 days before she drove that road. The next story comes from Elliot, a paramedic who worked in a small coastal town in Maine. He said it was one of the few calls that still haunts him after 20 years. A 911 call came in around 3:17 a.m. A man claiming his wife was acting strange. The dispatcher could hear sobbing in the background, followed by a single, chilling sentence. "She's standing at the window again." When Elliot arrived with his partner, the man was sitting on the front steps, shaking. He didn't say a word, just pointed upstairs. They found the wife in the bedroom, facing the window. Her hair covered her face, her hands pressed against the glass. Outside, the sea was calm. The moonlight shimmered over the waves. But her breath left frost on the glass, and she was whispering something again and again. Elliot leaned in. She was whispering her own name, over and over. When they gently turned her away from the window, they realized she was cold, not just cold, frozen. Her skin was pale blue, her lips stiff, but her eyes were open, and she was still whispering. When they checked her pulse, there was none. Her body temperature was far below normal. She had been dead for at least 12 hours. They tried to rationalize it. Hypothermia, shock, some bizarre neurological condition. But no one could explain how she'd made that 911 call hours after she died. The husband swore he saw her walk, breathe, even speak that night. Elliot left that job a few months later. He said every time he drives near the ocean, he sees her reflection in the window of his ambulance. Sometimes she's still whispering her name. The third story was sent in by someone who wanted to stay anonymous. She called it The Voice in the Walls. She'd just moved into a small apartment in Chicago. Cheap rent, old building, neighbors who kept to themselves. She worked long hours, often coming home after midnight. For the first week, everything seemed fine. Then, one night, as she was brushing her teeth, she heard something. A whisper. It came from behind the bathroom mirror. At first, she thought it was a pipe, or maybe a neighbor on the other side of the wall. But it came again. Slow, almost playful. "I can see you." She froze, turned off the tap, listened. Nothing. The next night, the same whisper returned. "Why are you still awake?" She moved out of the bathroom. The whisper followed her, faint but distinct, like it was crawling through the walls. She didn't sleep that night. A few days later, she told her landlord. He dismissed it, said the pipes made weird noises, that she was probably hearing echoes. So she decided to record it. She set up her phone in the bathroom, pressed record, and left it overnight. The next morning, she listened. At first, it was just silence. Then the sound of running water. Then, clear as day, a man's voice. "You shouldn't have moved the mirror." That afternoon, she called the police. They found something behind the wall, a small hidden space sealed off decades earlier when the building was remodeled. Inside, they discovered a narrow passageway leading between apartments. There were signs someone had been living there. Food wrappers, bedding, a small flashlight, and right behind her bathroom mirror, a hole just large enough for someone to watch through. The man was never caught, but sometimes she still dreams of that voice. "I can see you." The last story comes from a man named Arthur, a forest ranger in the Appalachian Mountains. He spent years patrolling vast stretches of wilderness, places where few people ever go. One winter, a hiker went missing. The search lasted 3 weeks. Snowstorms made it impossible to track him, and eventually the team had to call it off. But Arthur refused to stop looking. He kept going back every weekend. On the 12th day of his solo search, he found footprints, fresh ones. They led deep into the woods, far off any known trail, ending near an old ranger cabin from the 1940s. The door was open. Inside, everything was covered in dust, except for one chair that looked recently used. On the table sat a notebook. The missing hiker's name was written inside. The entries were strange. The man had written that he wasn't alone in the forest, that every night he heard someone whispering his name outside the cabin. He'd tried to leave, but the woods wouldn't let him. Arthur flipped through the pages until he reached the last one. It was dated the day before he disappeared. It said, "He found me, but it looks like me now." Arthur closed the notebook and stepped outside. The forest was completely silent. Then, from the trees behind him, came a voice. It sounded exactly like his own. People like to believe that every nightmare has a reason, a ghost, a crime, a trick of the light. But sometimes there is no explanation, just the thin line between what's real and what isn't. And for those who have survived the unimaginable, maybe survival wasn't the blessing it seemed. If this story chilled you, don't forget to subscribe to the Scary Darkroom for more terrifying tales. Sleep well, if you can.